You've heard it 100 times. You've read books and watched videos about it, and even though they have the potential to make or break your story, you still can't wrap your head around character arcs. Why? Because most times they're explained on their own, completely separate from the other parts of your story. But in this lesson, we're unlocking the full power of character arcs by covering what they are, the three main types, and how to make sure that your character's arc doesn't fall flat. This video is a lesson from a full free mega course on our website. If you're ready to supercharge your storytelling, click the link in the description and start your journey today. This video is also part of a series, so if you haven't watched the previous videos, there are links down below. Let's get started with the big question. What the heck is a character arc? A character arc is a visual way of thinking about the change your protag undergoes throughout the story. It's an internal concept and is closely related with the theme, B-story, need, and epiphany. It's also sometimes called the moral arc, inner journey, emotional plot, or emotional journey. In the last lesson, we ended by saying theme is about change. Well, you can imagine character arcs as a visualization of that change. If the theme is all about self-acceptance, then the character arc shows the change from self-loathing to self-acceptance in a visual way. Change is at the core of the B-story, the theme, and character arcs. The B-story describes the moments that lead to the protag's change. The theme describes the change itself, and character arcs help us visualize that change throughout the story. If you have any experience with character arcs, you've probably heard there are three main types. There are positive arcs, negative arcs, and flat arcs. Visually, they look something like this. However, we suggest thinking of them more like this, since usually there is a big change when your protag has their epiphany. You can see that each arc starts in the same place and ends higher, lower, or the same. Because of these endings, the positive and negative arcs are sometimes referred to as upending and downending stories, though these terms also take into account the ending's tone. Positive arcs are the most common and cover most of the stories we've described. They show a protag with a flaw who discovers their need and changes positively. Because of this, these stories usually end on a positive note, but you can also think about the positive as a net positive change in the protag's psychology. The protag doesn't always get their want, but in these stories they almost always feel good at the end. Examples include Shrek, Moana, Wedding Crashers, and almost every other example in this course. Negative arcs, on the other hand, showcase a character changing for the worse. The main type of negative arc is also known as a tragic arc, and it's what makes a story a tragedy. This usually shows a protag with a flaw who, instead of finding their need, embraces their flaw and causes the story to end tragically. The tone of the ending is usually negative, and there is a net negative change in the protag's psychology. This is a complex topic that affects a lot of story elements, so we are not going to cover it much in this mega course. But examples include The Social Network, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Founder, Uncut Gems, and Annie Hall, just to name a few. The final arc is a flat arc, which describes stories wherein the protag does not change from start to end. This arc is the least consistently defined, but there are three main ways people describe this arc. One shows the protag wavering between the need and the flaw before re-embracing the need, and the second shows a need-fueled protag inspiring others to embrace their own needs. These are often superhero stories or prophet myths. The third is a technically incorrect way of using the term, but it shows a protag who undergoes no change whatsoever. This third example actually just describes a story with no character arc, which would mean no B-story, and is thus a plot-driven or masculine story like 1987's Predator. If any of your favorite stories have a clear arc, comment them down below so we can check them out. Even though these are the three main arcs, the topic of character arcs is complex and there are a lot more subtleties, some of which we'll discuss in the extended version of this lesson. So how do you make sure your protag's character arc is so powerful it will completely knock your audience's socks off? There's one fantastic trick, and it can be summarized in this statement. The bigger the change, the better the arc. We want to see your protag undergo some massive change throughout your story. However, there is a trade-off, because the bigger the change, the more risk your story will feel unrealistic. So, to ensure you can realistically show a huge change, you will need to spend a lot of time throughout your story on your character arc. A super-powered arc is possible, but as we know from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. That covers this lesson on character arcs. You should have a good understanding of what a character arc is, the main varieties, and how to make your arcs more powerful. But if you want to dive deeper into the wide world of character arcs, the extended version of this lesson will cover more types of arcs, a super useful strategy to help start your arc off right, and an in-depth example from the 2006 dramedy, The Devil Wears Prada. And that brings us to the end of this mini course. Now that you understand the essentials of stories, including how they can be split into the A story and B story, as well as the concepts of plot, theme, and character arcs, we're ready to jump into the next mini course where we shift from talking about stories to talking about structure. See you there.